Hello and welcome. Today we're going to take a quick look at the Canon P rangefinder. The Canon P is probably the most well-known of Canon's rangefinders. It was produced from between 1958 and 1961. There were approximately 87,000 copies of this camera made during that time period. It is the evolution, or is an evolution of the Canon 6 series. The Canon rangefinders began with the 2, 3, and 4 series, which were bottom-loading Barnack style rangefinders. It evolved into the 5 series, which was the predecessor of the 6 series. The P is essentially the budget version, or the economy version of the 6 series, although frankly there's nothing budget or economy about it. This is a fine camera, and it is extremely popular. In fact, the P stands for populaire. That's what P stands for. It was designed to be a popular camera, and it succeeded brilliantly, and for good reason. I believe there are 3 main reasons for this camera's popularity. In my own, this is just my own highly opinionated rambling, for whatever it's worth. Number 1. It is simple and user-friendly. Rangefinders of the 1950s were anything but, and the Canon P was a breath of fresh air in terms of simplicity, ease of operation, and user-friendliness. We'll go over the features here shortly. Rock-solid build quality of chrome-plated brass. This is not a light camera. This is a nice, solid, heavy piece of metal. It is a well-made, quote-unquote, built like a brick style camera. It really exemplifies the best build quality practices of the post-World War II era. It really does. It's just a beautifully built, solid piece of machinery. And number 3, it's aesthetically elegant. The design and form factor of this camera, it makes it stand out. I think it has, well, I'm no expert, but would you say it's maybe almost like a Bauhaus or Art Deco-ish sort of vibe going on there? It's just, anyway, I believe there is a consensus around the idea that this is just not only a well-designed, but a beautifully designed camera as well. It's just nice to look at. And I think that has something to do with its popularity. I really do. Even though it's completely non-functional. All right, let's take a look at speaking of functional, let's take a look at the functional aspects of this camera. What makes it so user-friendly and easy as compared to what came before? Well, number 1 would be this. Here's how we open the back. I'm going to take this, turn this key here. It slides that safety catch out of the way. You see that safety catch which deploys when I turn the key. Okay. It retracts when I do this. Now I'm going to pull down on this catch here, and the back is going to open up just like a Nichromat or a auto reflex. Boom, that's it. So this is probably the number 1 user-friendly aspect of this camera, a swing back. Very few rangefinders of the period, in fact, I don't know if any rangefinders of the period has had a swing back. Most of them were bottom loading, or you remove the back, contacts style. The Canon P, well, the Canon 5 series had this as well, but I think this is one of the features of the Canon P which really makes it popular, is just the fact that the back swings open like so. On the top plate, we've got a advanced lever. Again, at the time, that was a bit of an innovation, because rangefinders oftentimes had a knob advance as opposed to lever advance, and the lever advance here was extremely useful, extremely convenient, and just very easy to use. Not right here, we've got your frame counter. You can see as I'm advancing, even though there's no film in the camera, the frame counter is operating, and it should reset automatically when I open the back of the camera. So if I open the back of the camera again, it's going to pop open the back, shut. Remember to do this. Now it's properly shut. And you see now the frame counter is set back to S, which stands for start. So this is a forward counting frame counter. It starts off with the letter S, or for start, which when you advance 2 frames to clear the exposed film out of the way for a fresh piece of film behind the lens. That's going to advance from the S to the 0, and then it'll count forward the number of exposures that you've shot. Right here we've got we have a orange dot inside of a circle, and the orange dot will rotate. It'll move around if there's film in the camera. If there's not film in the camera, it won't move. So for example, I'm sorry, I take that back, it will move if there's no film in the camera. So that simply tells you that the mechanism is advancing. There you go. So the lever also has a standoff position. A lot of advanced levers of the period did not. This does have a standoff position. Here is your shutter release. It's very smooth. It's incredibly, there we go, incredibly light, smooth, easy to operate. In addition, you can see that I can either advance the film with 1 stroke or 2 strokes, or as many strokes as I want. Advanced lever doesn't care. Release, 1 stroke, 2 strokes. Oh, there we go, 3. That's got it. Boom. How about 1 big stroke? Sure, no problem. So the advanced lever is very flexible in terms of how many times you operate it in order to advance the film. This is threaded for a standard cable release, which fits right inside. Very convenient. There's a collar around the shutter release button, which controls here's where you set the operation to either advance or rewind. You see this index mark, and the letter A stands for advance, so the film's advancing. When I want to rewind the film, what I do is I'll switch this here. Okay, I'll switch that index mark from here to here. And there's another little index mark right there. There's no letter, but what that stands for is rewind. All right, that's in the advanced position. When I finish my roll of film, I do like so to rewind it. This function on SLRs of the 1970s, if you're accustomed to that style of shooting, this is essentially the same as the button on the bottom plate where you push in to release the take-up spool. That's what that does right there. And I'm going to set this back on A for advance. But essentially, what I'm doing when I deploy that is I'm freeing up this part of the camera right here. This spool here, or this column with the sprockets, prevents the film from going backwards. When I want to rewind, obviously, I need to disengage that function, and that's how I disengage that function up top right here. So right now, it's set at A for advance, so this will not allow film to move backwards, okay? But if I set it to there, now, you see that? Now I can move this backwards. Here, put this back to the A, advance. There. That should, hold on a second. There. There. Now it will not let me move those gear teeth, those sprockets backwards. Okay. So that's what that does. Alrighty. Very good. Next we have our shutter speed dial, and again, you need to understand that the rangefinders of the period often had 2 different shutter speed dials, or they had the shutter speed dials where you'd have these tiny little dots very close to one another, where you had to match up an index mark in the center with some tiny little dot indicating the shutter speed. Which was easy to get the wrong shutter speed set because they were so close together. Problem solved on this shutter speed dial. This is the kind of shutter speed dial that we took for granted, by the late 1960s in use with SLRs of the period. It's very familiar to anyone who's accustomed to an SLR from the late 60s and 1980s. That's exactly what you got here. Shutter speeds going, and you have a full range of shutter speeds. And at this time, a full range of shutter speeds meant 1 second to 1/1000th of a second plus bulb. And this goes 1,500 and so forth, all the way around to a full second, then bulb, Then X means flash synchronization speed. I have no idea what the flash sync speed on this camera is. I do not use flash with old rangefinders, so can't help you there. And it keeps, but you notice the dial just keeps going around and around. There's no hard stop where you have to turn back around and go the other direction. It's just an incredibly user-friendly shutter speed dial. In fact, it's probably the most user-friendly shutter speed dial to appear on a camera prior to its production. I think that's no exaggeration. You then have the cold shoe device. That's just an accessory shoe with no electronic contacts. The most common thing you're going to mount on your rangefinder is not a flash for this device shoe. You'll more than likely mount an accessory viewfinder as opposed to a flash unit. Then we've got our rewind crank, and the rewind crank, again, it's just a beautiful example of industrial artwork. It folds flush with the camera body like so. When you want to rewind, you just flip it up like that. There you go. You flip it up, and there's even a little arrow there. It's nicely styled. You see that little oval grip. It spins around, and there. That's how you rewind your film. That's it. When you're done shooting film, right? I get to the last frame of my roll. All you do is you move this from the A position to the rewind position here. You've now disengaged that the sprockets so that the film can move back. And so now you move the film back, and you do that by simply deploying this crank here and turning. And as you do that, you will feel the tension, and you will eventually feel the film release from the take-up spool, and then and that's it. You're done rewinding, and at that point, when you're finished rewinding, you simply open the back of the camera. Open the back of the camera, and remove your film cartridge from right here. Well, you would pull this up to allow the film cartridge out. Right? These two teeth, they stick in, they mate with the film cartridge. So you pull that up to release the film cartridge and physically get it out of the camera. All right. Let's see here. Back of the camera, don't have a whole lot to. Keep forgetting to close this. There we go. Back of the camera, not much to show you. You've got your viewfinder. There are frame lines for 35, 50, and 100 millimeter lenses. The frame lines are parallax corrected. That's very convenient. There's a rangefinder patch in there. On this camera, it's a little bit faded, although it's still quite useful. Although faded rangefinder patches are fairly common. If you're in the market for one of these, that is something you should check on. That could be an issue. So be sure that the camera you're purchasing does have a nice, clear, contrasty rangefinder patch. Otherwise, you're essentially buying a viewfinder camera. This ASA DIN dial is purely a reminder. It has no functionality. Shoot, this one doesn't even turn. Well, whatever. So this is strictly a reminder dial with no functionality, and on the rest of the back of the camera you got nothing. There's really not much going on here. Front of the camera you have your viewfinder window, you've got your rangefinder window, strap lugs, self-timer, and that's about it. You got the old style lens with the focusing knob here. And the reason they did that is so that when you lock the lens into position, now you can unscrew it, because this is not a bayonet mount, it's a screw mount. So if you were to turn if this weren't here and you were to turn the lens like so, you'd turn the focusing ring, but you wouldn't unscrew it. So that's why that's there. So now I can push that and focus like so. That's a very common feature on rangefinder lenses. Okay. Another feature of let's take a look at the bottom of the camera. Bottom of the camera doesn't have much going on. You've got a tripod socket here, and the key to deploy and release the safety catch for the film back. That's all. Oops, excuse me. Here we go. That's all we got going on down here. And that's, there's not a whole lot more to say about it. The Canon P does have a stainless steel shutter curtain. This was an innovation for the period. metal shutter curtains were a brand new idea, certainly for focal plane shutters back in the 1950s, and the Canon rangefinders used an early version of a metal focal plane shutter. Many of them are wrinkled. I've done a separate video on wrinkled shutter curtains in Canon rangefinders. If you have a few wrinkles in your shutter curtain, it's really no big deal. In fact, it's almost impossible to find one that doesn't have a few wrinkles in it like this. And the condition you see in this shutter curtain is fairly typical. It's not unusual in the slightest. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if we can. There we go. Yeah. See that? There. Okay. So there, now it's cocked and released. Let's slow that down a little bit so we can take a look at that. Let's put that on 1 second. And cock the shutter. And release. Oops. Very good. Okay. Loading film in this camera is identical to all other cameras in the 5 and 6 series of Canon rangefinders. It's very simple, and it's very much like almost identical to a Nichromat, frankly, in terms of the steps needed to load film. It's real easy. The take-up spool only has one slot, but it's pretty well marked. That arrow and the line right there, as you can see. It really, for a camera of its period, it could not be more easy to use, more well built, or more aesthetically elegant, in my opinion. I will link down below to some reviews of the Canon P. Most of these are on websites that are a good 20 years old, so I don't know how often they pop up in the search results anymore. But they're worth reading. They're well written, and they're not written by, someone who just discovered this and is just talking about, how much fun they had putting their first roll of film through it. I mean, the review's written by people who are familiar with the cameras. And I'll link to that down below. And I think that explains, at least in a nutshell, why these things are so popular. And if you're into rangefinders, you really, I challenge you to find a more user-friendly, better-built rangefinder than the Canon P. They're really they excel. They truly do, and they are popular, and they're popular for a reason, and for good reason, in my opinion. All right, that's what I've got for you today. I hope you found this video informative or amusing or some combination thereof, and if so, please do like and subscribe and check out the links below. Thanks now. Bye-bye.